and welcome to The Print. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. Well, the big news anywhere in the world today is the big blow up that has happened between the visiting Ukrainian President Zelensky and the American President Donald Trump, and of course, the Vice President JD Vance. So, what should India really make up of the Trump Zelensky blow up? And to discuss this further, I have with me Miss Asha Jadeja, who is a venture capitalist and someone who you've seen earlier on the print. Welcome to the print, Asha.
Most welcome. Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Absolutely, and welcome to India. You've come here after a very long time, I suppose.
No. I was here last month, so yeah, I'm here almost every 2 months. It's a pleasure to be here.
Perfect, lovely. So, as the question says, what should India really make up of this Zelensky Trump blow up, flare up, whatever that you call it?
Well, it's a new normal now, number one, in the sense that the context here, Snehesh, is that Zelensky has been pretty obstinate about not wanting a ceasefire. And all that is based on his reliance on US weapons and US funding. And I think Trump put his foot down this time and said, look, we cannot continue funding you at this rate at which we have been doing, number one. Number two, I think the context was that 150 billion of the 350 billion got lost. And a lot of people are suspecting that it was money laundering by the Democrats. That money went into the Democratic electoral machinery. It was used for, promoting a whole bunch of ads and other things during the election machine. So there is a lot of unhappiness, a lot of discomfort about what happened to that money that went to Zelensky. And Zelensky has very openly acknowledged that that money was lost, that he didn't get it. Now, 150 billion lost is not a small amount. Number one. So I think Trump has been I think he's been very aggressive about, number one, asking where did that money go. Number two, saying that, look, if you want to continue having us help you, we need to have some kind of a deal on business, right? We can't just keep pumping capital into your country when we don't have any quid pro quo. So I think the deal that Trump was trying to orchestrate is having digging rights into Ukraine for its rich mineral deposits and critical minerals, actually, even for semiconductors and so on. So that's what Trump wanted. I think in that conversation in the White House, what happened was there was, a very intransigent, Zelensky saying that his people would not be happy if they had a ceasefire. And Trump disagreed. What he felt is that there are so many young people that have died in this war, the 600,000 young Ukrainians who have just been cannon fodder for the Russians. And so he feels that Zelensky is not representing his people correctly. People really do want to cease fire and they want an end to this war. And I think they had a disagreement about that. But what I am personally, shocked is that Zelensky continued to deploy the same intransigent kind of a look and feel and tenor in his conversation at the Oval Office in front of the media, which I thought was very disrespectful. And I think it was what Trump and Vance did was the right thing, which was just give him a slap on the wrist, on his wrist right there, and say, look, this is not the way to behave. You're in a state of privilege when you come to the U.S. You are in the Oval Office. You are with the President of America, and the to start airing his dirty laundry right there in front of the media was not the right thing on Zelensky's part. I think people are fed up in Washington D.C. of supporting his war.
No doubt that the flare up was very unconventional. Nobody really expected. Everybody knows how Zelensky is. In the sense that following Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ukraine, where he met with President Zelensky, and within hours, he had gone out on Twitter and made various comments, which didn't go down with the Indian side too. But what is worrying is the fact that you mentioned that this is the new normal. So what do you mean by this is the new normal? In the sense
So,
you,
so I'll give you an
yeah,
example. What was the reaction, right? after this flare up. This is the first time in whatever 250 years that there was such a bizarre flare up in the Oval Office. What was the reaction in Washington D.C.? There was, people came out and said most of the people supported Trump and Vance. And, you had a statement from the senator, who was that? I'm forgetting the name now, but, one of the
Yeah.
Republican leader. He came out and gave a strong statement saying they did the right thing by calling out Zelensky on his reluctance to end the war and to strike some kind of a deal with Trump on even paying back for the cost of the war that he has been championing. So I think the overall reaction was like, this is, well, it shouldn't have happened, but it happened. Now, how do we get used to it? How do we integrate that into our normal conversation? For me personally, this was not a shock because there has been so much sparring between Zelensky and Trump. I knew that Trump was going to lose his temper, actually. I mean, he's been not only calling him a dictator, but Trump also has, in an interesting twist to all of this, Trump also has said that the man shouldn't come dressed like this. He comes in a stupid t shirt and cargo pants, and Trump has been, asking him to come properly, according to protocol, like wear a suit or something, wear a tie. That's what everybody does in Washington D.C. when they come to the White House, and the man walks around like a hippie. And I think Trump, and Trump's comment on Zelensky that this man is at best a mediocre comedian, and now he's suddenly a statesman, is something. I think Trump is again right on that front also, that the man is just being put there as a puppet by certain forces, and he has done a good job of defending his people. The Ukrainians have been, of course, a courageous bunch of people sending their children like this into the jaws of death. Literally, I mean, it's just 600,000 kids just pulverized in open land where the war takes place with Russia. So, so I think there was so much sparring on Twitter already that I'm not surprised that this happened. It's just that I didn't expect it to happen in front of the media. I mean, it's okay if it happened, in the cabinet meeting or in a closed door setting, if they really came to, virtual blows, so to speak. But I didn't expect this to happen in front of the media, and the media reacted pretty well. Nobody actually had a kind of any strange meltdown. People were asked to leave at some point, and it's this is by new normal. I mean, this is what something we're going to have to integrate. This is Trump. The man has come in and rebooted America in the first 3 weeks. This is a new normal, Snehesh. This is what he has promised the American people, and this is why he won. That he's going to not only reboot US domestically, but also make sure that he stops all this money flowing out of America, American taxpayer money, into foreign adventures and into foreign wars. So he's delivering what he said he would deliver. Now, this is not something that the Washington swamp is used to. Washingtonians are not used to this level of unusual deal making, and acrimony. But this is Trump, and he's got the mandate, and people better get used to that.
But that's true. I think people need to get used to that because Trump is not going anywhere for the next 4 years. He's going to be there, right? But many people would say that look at how Trump has behaved with Ukraine, right? He's going back on the security guarantees, on the help that was promised by the American administration. I'm not calling it the Biden administration. Governments, administrations come and go, but at the end of the day, it's the US, right? So, and now this showdown, which the first 40 minutes went off fine, and then JD Vance came out with a comment about the need for diplomacy, and that's when everything just snowballed into a country, to the point that Zelensky had to leave without even having lunch that was ready for him, right? So,
So by the way, the first reaction all of us had is that we are going to have a field day at the next Saturday Night Live. This is going to be, incredible for the late night comedians on TV. This is going to be fodder for the next,
The
few
memes are
months.
already out. There was amazing video that was put out by somebody, and which I also put it out on my X account, which shows Trump and Zelensky getting into a fist fight with JD Vance also coming in. But my question is, somewhere isn't the American credibility getting eroded as far as the allies are concerned? Because then how do you trust the promises made by the US administration? What if the next one comes and changes it?
Well, that's democracy, right? That's the nature of democracy, and the Republicans and Democrats are very far apart right now on how they see America's role and America's leadership on a global on the global stage. And so this sort of wanting to withdraw from too many commitments into the European alliance and into NATO is something that is was kind of expected, because Trump has been speaking about it nonstop. That I think is not in question. I think what is probably surprising to the Europeans is the swiftness with which all this is happening. The sort of the black and white, no negotiation, no holds barred conversations that are happening, a lot of lecturing that's happening by US, as we did as Vance did in Munich. So these kind of things the Europeans are they were not expecting. Europeans are like the rest of these large democracies, right? People want to they're process driven. They're not outcome driven, and they are not results driven. So what's happening is that they are also slowly coming to grips with that. I have not seen a single European leader so far say that Trump's demand that we stop, that Americans stop paying for this war, is there, if there's anything wrong with it. Not one European leader has come out and said that this is unfair. No, it's not. All Europeans are saying that this is a very reasonable demand. We need to do the heavy lifting. I just don't think they're ready to pay. That's the issue right now with the Europeans. They don't want to pay. They don't want to come up with that 2 to 5% GDP that they're supposed to cough up. They're not going to do that. But this was all pretty expected. And are they going to renege on previous promises? Of course. That's the nature of how things roll on a global front, simply because each administration has a different policy.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? When people look at it, the Russians are going to enjoy this flare up. The Europeans are aghast, right? And multiple almost all European leaders have put out their statements on X, telling Zelensky that we are with you, but not being critical of Trump. But one country, while India also looks at it, one other country, and that is the worry that I have, which should be looking at it, would be China. So take off your India hat, take off a US hat, and put on the China hat, and see it from a Chinese perspective. What do you think the Chinese will? How do you think the Chinese will look at this particular situation now?
So the Chinese are not going to be happy that the Russians, who were so far were pushed into the arms of the Chinese by the Biden administration, they are not going to be happy that they have Russia. They had a vulnerable Russia. China felt they had Russia in their pocket because it was vulnerable to what the Biden administration was pressurizing, Putin about. I think China is going to be unhappy that they suddenly don't have the kind of leverage that they had over Putin, over Russia. So I don't think they're going to be very happy about this. And I think that this is a coup that Trump has pulled off in terms of getting and winning Russia back. We need Russia in our camp in the US. We cannot afford to drive Russia into the arms of China, not at this critical juncture where everything is up for negotiation. There is a lot of turmoil, and nobody knows exactly where things are going to go on the Taiwanese front. And so, having a Russia back into the fold of the US is a coup. I think this is an incredibly powerful move on Trump's part. I'm not sure if it was planned that way, but it has. That's how it has evolved, and I think it's. I mean, hats off to the Trump team that this has happened. We are winning Russia back for US.
But I'll agree with you on that. The fact is that Russia was increasingly going over to the Chinese side because of the American moves against Russia. But now there seems to be some kind of a balance that has been formed, and Russia will have more maneuvering space. But from a perspective of China, it is looking at the US and how the US is more transactional oriented, and that you probably can get away with aggression which may not directly affect the US, right? So what about the Chinese aggression like I have a big theory that the reason why China wanted to settle the border tensions with India was because it wanted to focus on the US because Trump was coming in. Had Trump not come in, had Biden remained, I don't think so. China would have been, so open and so eager to bring down the tensions. Do you think that China would probably feel that they can get away with some act of aggression, not maybe towards India, but maybe on some other side, and they think that they can handle it with Trump?
Not anymore. Not anymore. If India and Russia are going to be in the US fold, which is exactly where it's heading right now, this is perhaps the worst time geopolitically for the Chinese. Because suddenly the dependence on China is going down for the Americans. The dependence of Russians on the Chinese is going down, and if three of these large powers are in one fold and in sync, which is very likely, and we are seeing that happening as we speak, it's very unlikely that China will do anything in terms of an aggressive, hostile move towards anybody on their border or in the South China Sea. It's unlikely.
I remember our last conversations where you said that both are hard negotiators and both have a businessman. Prime Minister Modi for the fact that he's a good Jew, and Trump because he's a businessman. I had my colleague Keshav Padmanabhan, who covers the foreign affairs for us. He did a story this week for us, in which it was said that both sides knew exactly what to give and what to take. On the Indian side, they were okay with on the tariff issue. They took steps for the tariff. They've promised more tariff steps, and also the illegal migration. The Trump for this, he's supported India's defense partnership, and he also spoke about taking action against terrorism and Sikh separatism. But given all this now, because this is now the new normal, right? Trump and JD ones together is a deadly combo and can ambush anyone. So going forward, how do you think India should handle this issue or handle the Trump Vance duo?
Okay, so I'll share something which is non-controversial. So I met with Dr. Jaishankar yesterday in
Okay.
Delhi. Since
Yeah.
I'm here, and he very kindly agreed to take me at short notice. And this, I'm just sharing only whatever he and I agreed we can share. But
Okay.
here's what I foresee. I foresee Dr. Jaishankar spending a lot of time in Washington D.C. now, and Prime Minister Modi also having a lot of back and forth between U.S. and India, and Trump having back and forth between U.S. and India. Much more is going to be happening on three verticals, and this is all common knowledge, by the way. One is on, of course, on tariffs and trade, and what Modi's team would like to do is to make sure that we have some good quid pro quo going on with the US without lowering our barriers for the whole world, I think, number one. Number two, um, um, I think India is keen on making sure that we are playing our best card on immigration. So the
Okay.
immigration vertical is something I think that the Modi administration wants to make sure that our legally, settled Indians, so EB visa or H1 visa or something, that these people are not unfairly hurt by Trump's deportation scheme, which I think is very reasonable, and I think Trump is going to probably going to go with that recommendation that those who are needed for the software industry, highly qualified, highly educated engineering folks, I mean these people are not going to be in any kind of trouble. And the third thing I think the Modi government wants is to make sure that we have our technology partnerships, our technology transfers also, especially on the nuclear deal, expedited. So I have a feeling that between these three verticals, trade, immigration, and technology transfers, I have a feeling that we are going to be seeing a lot of back and forth between U.S. and India. And I think on so your question was about what are we going to see? What's going to be India's take on this? Well, I think as far as India goes, we've never had a better set of relationships with with the U.S. There's there is a little bit. Even there's a little bit of tension in things like Harley Davidson, right? Motorbikes, and we have these tariffs over, in things that we may not be happy about. They might want us to lower it down to 25%. We still want to maybe keep it to 50%. So there are going to be these minor irritants. But I think geopolitically, the relationship is on such a stable footing, simply on practically speaking, because it's the best thing that can happen to both our countries. We are both trying to make sure that we ensure a stable Indo-Pacific and South China Sea. We are trying to make sure that supply chains, critical supply chains, are not disrupted, and we are both trying to make sure that we are partnering on defense and tech and immigration, stuff like that. So I think given the overlap of interest between these two countries, I doubt if there's going to be anything to slow us down right now. And I see a much more aggressive India team spending a lot of time in the US.
Well, that's good news if it all turns out to be true. But I do agree that both leaders have special rapport, a personal rapport, about each with each other. At the same time, there are too many interests and there are too many subjects which are critical for both countries. So there is not much scope for the relations to deteriorate, but more scope for the relations to grow. But thank you so much, Asha ji, for speaking to the print and coming to us on such a short notice. And we look forward to more on this whole Zelensky Trump flare up. Thank you so
Well, look
much.
out, look out for the next Saturday Night Live. I think it'll be a riot.
Absolutely.
Enjoy, enjoy. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.